is a self-described global elite, and he and his global elite friends believe in mass immigration that gives more power to corporate elites like him and less wages to the Canadian people. They win, the liberal elites win and Canadian workers lose. But we
Says Pierre Poilievre has come to calling Mark Carney a globalist in quite a long time. So glad to see that from a news conference yesterday. We'll be back in mere moments. This is David Krayden broadcasting to you live from the nation's capital. We'll be back with lots to report this morning.
The Prime Minister lied and his minions continue to lie.
Your home is your castle. We're calling on the government to introduce and immediately pass the Stand on Guard law.
But we also need to resolve to resist.
We'll be watching more of that news conference in a little while, because this was all about the temporary foreign worker program and Pierre Poilievre's stated desire to eliminate it, but apparently there's going to be a program for agriculture. But we'll get to that, because I wanted to share this with you right away. I found this absolutely fascinating. So Kevin Roberts, who is the president of the Heritage Foundation, this is a very right-leaning conservative group in the United States, advises Republicans, Republican presidents, Republican presidential nominees, and plenty of people in Congress. He's also the mastermind of Project 2025, which is a social conservative plan for America. I agree with all of it. Why is he meeting with Mark Carney in the cabinet today? Now, I'm going to try to find out, but I already passed this on to Clayton Morris at Redacted, because I know he's going to find this very interesting. Because it can mean one of two things, obviously, that the so-called conservative establishment in the U.S. is in bed with the woke liberals, or Mark Carney is desperate to understand how to deal with the Trump administration. It's one of the two. If you can come up with a third, go ahead. I invite you to comment on this, because I saw this just literally a half an hour ago before as I was preparing this broadcast, and I thought, this is today. So I invite your comments on this. If you haven't had a chance to read my story yesterday on Substack, Krayden's right. Canada is a safe haven for thugs. And yeah, a few people objected, but I think most of you who read this are going to say right on, because home invasions, no problem in this country, because we don't have castle law. This is what the Stand on Guard law is all about. I think it took Pierre Poilievre a long time to wake up to the seriousness of this problem, but at least he's woken up to it. Who are the other thugs? The other thugs are so-called task forces or death squads that can enter your property, violate your property, enter your home, and take away your livestock and kill it, which is what's happening potentially. I think we can stop it. But what could be happening in British Columbia at the Universal Ostrich Farms. And we have been fighting since Sunday, day in and day out, to stop this. And I'm going to be playing a clip from Katie Passatney. She was on Redacted yesterday. Very proud to say I was able to pitch that for her. And she got on the show and did an excellent job of explaining why this is tyranny, stupidity, unscientific, and completely in line with the objectives of the globalists and the health authorities who want to lock down a province and a country. But we'll get to that one later. There's just so much to share with you today. And so I wanted to show you this incredible little bit. Doug Ford posturing again. You heard about the home invasion in Vaughan. And I wrote about that in this column here.
North of Toronto, a community is in shock as new information emerges about an alleged home invasion turned homicide.
I've known him for over 10 years, and he was more than a friend. He was a brother to me.
The victim, 46-year-old Abdul Aleem Faruqi of Vaughan, a husband and father of 4. Ontario's premier now says he was killed while trying to protect his family.
These scumbags shot him right in front of his kids, shot him dead.
Okay, it's fine for Doug Ford to say the scumbag shot him. However, folks, why isn't Doug Ford telling his attorney general to direct judges, prosecutors, that we don't need to charge people who are the victims of home invasions? Doug Ford could be doing more.
Doug Ford recounting details he says he learned from York Regional Police. They're looking for at least 3 suspects. In a statement, Vaughan Mayor Stephen Del Duca says the deplorable criminals who killed this man in front of his wife and kids in their own home need to be captured and face swift and harsh punishment. Faruqi's close friends shaken and in disbelief.
Aleem was a brother. He was not a blood brother, but if I had a problem, I'll go to Aleem first before I go to my real brother.
The daughters were held at gunpoint and they were taken towards the father, towards Aleem. And while at gunpoint, while trying to protect his family, his life was taken in front of his daughters.
This comes nearly 2 weeks after a Lindsay, Ontario man was arrested and charged for allegedly assaulting an intruder into critical condition, which spurred widespread debate over self-defense laws and criminal convictions, including from the Ontario Premier. Ford says he knew Faruqi. He shared some strong words for Ottawa when it comes to justice reform.
It's a disaster right now in the justice system, and I'm going to be all over the federal government.
Meanwhile, a small memorial is growing near Faruqi's home. A crowd of hundreds showed up for a vigil on Monday to remember a man dedicated to his faith, charity, and community. York Regional Police say they'll provide an update on the case Wednesday. Dale Manukduk, CBC News, Vaughan.
Yeah, good report. At least in this case, we weren't focused. We weren't focused on the victim being charged. Why? Because he was killed. And as I wrote in this Substack piece, it's about the only time the victim of a home invasion isn't charged if he's actually murdered. We've come to that ridiculous, ludicrous situation in Canada, and I say it's got to stop. And Doug Ford had better do something about it. Well, how come he just said Mark Carney, Prime Minister Mark Carney, is doing a really, really good job as Prime Minister? Mark Carney doesn't give a damn about these home invasions, and you don't hear a word from Mark Carney about these home invasions. Has he commented on it? No. And you watch, he won't. You watch, he won't. And so here's what the police are saying.
Can make his own statement and his own mind up about that. What I would say is, as a police service, we'll follow the laws as they're written. If the laws change, we'll change with the laws. But as it stands, we know the best defense for most people is to comply. As you've just heard, a number of safety recommendations will allow for those that are victimizing members in the community to leave and not harm anyone. It sometimes can fall on deaf ears when members feel like they have to take matters into their own hands. And the only thing I'd say is, if we are going to rely on our community members to take matters into their own hands to solve this problem, we have all failed our community. I've been down as our police service will again talking about it. And it seems like I would say is, as our police service will follow the laws as they're written. If the laws change, we'll...
Yeah, you have failed your community. That's the point. You have utterly failed your communities because you want to arrest the victim, not the perpetrator of the real crime. So what a load of BS this is.
Hands to solve this problem, we have all failed our community. I've been down at Queen's Park. I've provided comments on bail reform. So have many of my colleagues across the GTA. And here we are again talking about it. And it seems like in some cases, right, we have not moved the needle collectively, because this is not just a police issue. Unfortunately, when it becomes our issue, it's too late. So we need to do something about this issue around bail and about keeping those people off the streets that shouldn't be on the streets.
Yeah, okay. But you don't. Now, I want to get into Pierre Poilievre's news conference yesterday, and what exactly did he say? Because there's much good that came out of this, and let's just listen to this clip for a start, because this is a significant announcement, and unfortunately, at this news conference, he did not explain how agriculture and agricultural workers who are brought in to do the jobs Canadians who live here won't do, that was not included in his speech yesterday. He said it multiple times before, and we'll get to that.
Has hired an unimaginable 1,131%.
Sorry, I didn't get the beginning.
Has hired an unimaginable 1,131% more temporary foreign workers in the last 4 years. In the first half of this year alone, the TFW program has imported 74% more low-skilled labor than in all of 2015. TFWs, the number of temporary foreign workers, is now 2% of our overall workforce, and a staggering number, an unprecedented number. Now, the Liberals promised they would cap the temporary foreign worker program at 82,000, but in the first 6 months, they've already handed out 105,000 permits. To put this into perspective, if they do the same number of permits for temporary foreign workers in the next 6 months that they did in the last, they will break the record again with over 200,000 temporary foreign workers coming in to take jobs when our own young people are facing record unemployment. The Liberals have to answer, why is it that they're shutting our own youth out of jobs and replacing them with low-wage temporary foreign workers from poor countries who are ultimately being exploited? And let us say as well, the people, the individual temporary foreign workers, the workers themselves, they are not bad people. They are not the problem. They are being taken advantage of by liberal corporate elites who want to use them to drive down wages. And of course, we continue to support the dream of all immigrants to Canada, immigrants who come here to be Canadian, to get a job, work hard, contribute, and live a good life. That is part of the Canadian promise, and that is not what we're addressing here today. We're addressing a program that temporarily brings people from low-wage countries to replace Canadians and drive down the wages of our people. The time has come for decisive action to stop the Liberals from using our immigration system to pad the pockets of corporate elites and other insiders at the expense of Canadian jobs. Again, the principle is very simple. The principle is very simple. Canadian jobs for Canadian workers. Canada first, Canada always. That's why Conservatives are calling on the Carney government to permanently scrap the temporary foreign worker program and to stop issuing visas for any new temporary foreign workers coming into the country. Under this proposal, existing permits would be wound down until the program is entirely eliminated. Canadian jobs will go to Canadian workers first. It's time that Mr. Carney took the job seriously of repairing the damage that his party has done. Unfortunately, the immigration minister who destroyed the program and caused this mess is now Mark Carney's Justice Minister. You can believe it. He's now gone from creating a housing crisis as housing minister, an immigration crisis as immigration minister, to creating a crime crisis as Justice Minister. It's the same Liberal team with the same Liberal results, just a different face who's even worse.
That sounds like Sean Fraser, all right, and that's who he's talking about. He's been a disaster everywhere he goes, and he's continuing.
The last one. July's employment data has confirmed that what Mr. Carney's economy is doing to our youth. 14.6% unemployment, 1.6 million Canadians unemployed. According to CIBC, that the levels of employment are normally what you would see in a, quote, a recessionary period. Yet the Liberals are still...
We'll be talking about this in the next couple of days. We are potentially in a recession. Economic experts, banking people are saying that. So it's interesting that Pierre Poilievre has picked up on the word here. He doesn't really expand upon it, but I bet you he's going to in the next coming days. That's my prediction.
Bringing in the workers from abroad to take jobs from people here at home, and they are driving down wages. Nearly 3/4 of the temporary foreign workers in Canada do jobs that pay below average wages, which means that they are ultimately taking jobs from the people in Canada that need them most. These workers should not be demonized. They are being taken advantage of, nor do we have a problem with immigrants who come here to build a family and start a life, pay their taxes, follow the rules, and integrate into the Canadian way of life. That should be the goal. But that is entirely different from what the Liberals are doing. Mark Carney is a self-described global elite, and he and his...
Okay, well, you heard the rest of that. But I have to say at this point, I have to say, look at this. This is a very easy to understand. Here's the students coming into Canada. You see that? Going right up at a 45-degree angle on this chart. Look at the temporary foreign worker program for agriculture. It's actually declining. So that's why there's a separate stream here. Because people are abusing the temporary foreign worker program in terms of people coming in to work at Tim Hortons. Yes. Agriculture needs these workers because, I say it again, Canadians won't do the work. They're above it now. They won't pick the apples or the pears. They won't go into the berry patches. They won't do that work that temporary foreign workers are prepared to do. And that's why agriculture hires. And not because they've got some designs on not hiring Canadians. It's because they're desperate and they need to hire these people. And that, I can't emphasize that enough. And we know, yes, Poilievre is calling for that, but he's also called for a separate stream for agriculture because he has been informed about the real situation there. Got to say, in addition to this, we'll put this back here for a second. Poilievre says not to demonize the foreign workers. Well, obviously, they're doing what they can to survive in many cases. However, folk, if you live in the Ottawa area, or you live in Calgary, or you live in Vancouver, go to a fast food restaurant and go through the drive-through and try to order something without the person not understanding what you're saying. And in return, when he or she repeats the order, you don't know what he or she is saying because their English is not exactly very strong. So is that a good business practice to hire people who can't really speak English? It's got nothing to do with their race or ethnicity. It's language skills. It's their ability to do a job. Yeah, they come cheap. But if you're going to a drive-through window and they don't know what the hell you're talking about and you can't understand them, maybe it's not a good business practice. And I will keep saying that because I think this is a real mistake. Let's listen to a little more Poilievre here because it's interesting. He really is challenged at times.
So far, Mark Carney has not found a single penny in new savings. While he promised to spend less, in the 5 months he's been Prime Minister, he increased the cost of the government by 8%. 33% more federal public servants are earning over $100,000 under Mark Carney. He's increased the cost of consultants by 37%. And if you believe economists, they calculate Mark Carney's deficit could be twice as big as Justin Trudeau's, which is unimaginable. No one thought it was possible to have a worse deficit than Trudeau, but Mark Carney appears to have accomplished it.
Yeah, he certainly has accomplished it. These are figures that usually are a precursor or a precipitating event for a recession or perhaps depression. Mark Carney has doubled the deficit from Justin Trudeau. And remember what I'm always telling you, when the Trudeau government on its last legs, literally in December, days before winter, they issued a fall economic update with just a few days to spare before it actually became winter. And you remember the fiscal cliff was like, what, $80 billion? Mark Carney has completely subsumed that. He's spending more money on consultants. He's spending more money on public servants. We showed you the other day how much money operational costs, meaning salaries for bureaucrats, is amounting to $77.1 billion. We're spending more money on this than just about anything else in the government. This is a recipe for collapse, national collapse. Now, one more clip from the Poilievre news conference, because I think this is a very interesting question. A very interesting question. And I'm going to explain why Poilievre answered it the way he did. But before that, I want to show you this clip that sort of puts things in perspective.
He's back in business. Pierre Poilievre has been busy calling for changes to federal policy. First, it was amendments to the criminal code. Now the Conservatives are calling on the government to end the temporary foreign workers program. CTV's Rachel Aiello picks up this file. Okay, Rachel, tell us more.
Sandy, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre is pushing for temporary foreign worker permits to be wound down until the program ceases to exist. So those largely low-paying jobs can be filled by young and unemployed Canadians. Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre wants to abolish Canada's temporary foreign worker program
and to stop issuing visas for any new temporary foreign workers coming into the country.
Prime Minister Mark Carney said today Cabinet is discussing how the program is working, but asserted it'll continue to play a part in Canada's immigration system.
When I talk to businesses around the country, particularly in Quebec, but elsewhere across the country, their number one issue is tariffs, and their number two issue is access to temporary foreign workers.
Poilievre's plan includes a carve-out for agricultural labor and an up to 5-year transition period for regions with ultra-low unemployment.
The turnover is insanely high. It's really hard to fill those labor needs domestically.
This 8th-generation farmer said the suggestion has tilled up a lot of concern in his community.
I don't know how you do away with a temporary foreign worker program in totality without potentially harming the agriculture streams.
Migrants' rights advocates say what Poilievre is proposing wouldn't come close to solving this country's employment challenges and accused him of leveraging division over immigration to get back in the national conversation.
Temporary foreign workers are in agriculture, they're chefs, they're in fishery workers. These are not summer youth jobs, right? So linking the two is as bizarre as sort of linking, the wages in Ontario with the weather in Saskatchewan.
The Federal Immigration Department said today that fewer new temporary workers entered Canada in the first half of this year compared to 2024, and continued reductions are planned.
So it seems that Poilievre is still committed to a carve-out for agriculture, and that is so highly supported amongst the agricultural sector. However, it would have been somewhat reassuring if Pierre Poilievre had actually restated that yesterday at the news conference, and he didn't. And unfortunately, during the questions that were being asked, that wasn't raised at all. Here's one question that was raised, and I think Poilievre's response is, shall we say, fascinating.
Morning, Jaspreet from Omni News. Liberal government is intent to recognize Palestine as a state in this fall session. What's your take on it? Are you in favor or do you oppose this?
Mark Carney doesn't know where he stands. He first said he was going to recognize the Hamas state.
All right, the question wasn't where Mark Carney stands, it's where you stand. So right away, he is ducking the question, as we would say, and suggesting this is something to do with Mark Carney.
And then the other day, he said that he wasn't recognizing the Hamas state. So he seems very...
What is a Hamas state? And it's this sort of vernacular that the Conservatives love to use because they talked about China constantly, but they didn't want to say China, so they said Beijing over and over. And it really gets irritating because it's distraction. And they don't want to use a word for whatever reason they've made up. They don't want to use a word. But there's no such thing as a Hamas state. There's a terrorist organization called Hamas. It would not be the state. Every Palestinian is not a member of Hamas. So to call it a Hamas state is terribly misleading.
Confused on the world stage. He has been, so far, at best irrelevant, and at worst, a failure. Our priority here in Canada is standing up for this country and our jobs here at home. That is our focus. But we were obviously not.
All right. He was getting a 4 out of 10 for this response until he said that. Canada first. Because stop focusing on foreign wars and focus on what's wrong with Canada. That's where we should be. Canada first, not Ukraine first, or Israel first, or some other country first, which is where, unfortunately, the Conservative Party has often gone, right after the Liberals, where they're going. Canada first. Deal with the problems at home. Stop navel-gazing and obsessing about what's happening in the Middle East. Stop the war. Stop funding the war in Israel and Ukraine. Stop hoping that everything is just going to work out, but we need to have leadership here. But it begins at home. Canada first. That's, I think, makes this a much better answer than it would have been otherwise.
Going to recognize Hamas as a state. That would be rewarding terrorism. But the focus of our foreign policy is to stand up for Canada and put our country and its interests first on the world stage.
Okay, right on. Put Canada's interests first in the world stage. But stop talking about somebody wanting to establish a Hamas state. This is just double talk from the Conservative Party communications. And like I say, I'm not here to be a propagandist for the Conservative Party or Pierre Poilievre. I've done that work in the past. But so this is directly dishonest, but thank God he clarified the matter by saying Canada first. Now, I want to move to the Ostrich story because what's happening in BC? Well, I just received a text back from Katie Passatnay in Edgewood, British Columbia, at the Universal Ostrich Farms. No, the death squad is not descended yet. As I said the other day, there was a black helicopter having a look at the territory. I think it was on Tuesday. She was on Redacted yesterday. I want to play a brief clip from that because I thought she was extremely effective in framing the issue here in terms of not only public health, but why this government is so intent on killing these birds. It's got nothing to do with science. It's got nothing to do with public health. It's got nothing to do with the health of the birds. It's got everything to do with following the globalist agenda of the World Health Organization and the pandemic treaty that we surreptitiously signed and the Conservative Party supported earlier this year. So let's have a listen to this. I will let you know either by X post or broadcast if anything happens. I'm hopeful after all of the exposure this story has received this week that the Trump administration is going to intervene in this story. I'm hopeful for that because that's why we've been working so hard to get the truth out about what's happening at this farm and why the Carney government wants to send a death squad to the farm to wipe out these birds. And if you don't understand why this is important and you don't understand property rights or the violation of those property rights and the violation of the government seizing livestock under false pretenses and then killing that livestock. There's a political agenda here and it's heinous. So let's listen to this clip from Redacted yesterday. My good friends Clayton and Natalie brought Katie on the show yesterday. I think she did an excellent job. I can't say enough about it. And we're hoping she can get more exposure this week on some other U.S. broadcasts that are reaching tens of millions of people.
Well, listen to this crazy story. In late 2024, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency, the CFIA, ordered the killing of about 400 ostriches at the Universal Ostrich Farm near Edgewood, British Columbia, after they say they detected H5N1 avian flu. But the farm fought back. They fought the order in court, arguing the birds were healthy and that they had made it through the flu and everything was fine. But that's not enough for the communist Canadian government. They still want to kill these birds, all 400 of them. Now everyone from Joe Rogan, Elon Musk, Bobby Kennedy, even Dr. Oz, and friend of the show David Krayden have gotten involved to stop the killing of these birds. Yeah. I want to ask you about this antibody piece of this, and you mentioned that we're hurting humanity. And I think people don't understand this, that if there's natural herd immunity here with these birds, they're in many ways like a firewall against this disease, right? It's actually way better for these birds to exist and to protect us and other birds. Am I wrong about that?
I love that you both understand it. Yeah, so, we have natural immunity here. We have antibodies are a real thing. We're fear-mongering, I think, people that antibodies and herd immunity don't exist anymore. Our ostriches here hold a key to a natural, sustainable solution in therapeutics, something that would push us further away from the reliance on vaccinations and more pills. And that is hard for us to knock it away from, thinking that that might be part of the reason why we're under attack here. Nobody's avian influenza free as long as we have migratory birds. So why are we getting rid of our agricultural industry? Why are we getting rid of our cattle? Why are we attacking the poultry industry? Why are we coming after the farmers and our backyard chickens that are giving us big, beautiful, healthy eggs with the chickens raised in the sunshine? It only leads down one path, to believe that we are under the 2030 agenda. I've just been learning so much about this in the last 9 to 10 months, but they don't want farmers. They don't want farms. They want to push us off our properties. They've made it very clear in our situation alone that they can come in based off a suspicion in Canada with the Canadian Food Inspection Agency and kill every animal you own. So our livelihoods, property rights, your animals, everything you have, you've lost all right to, just by, a bureaucratic overreach. And we're protecting international trade. And we have these animals that are not poultry. They have names. Our oldest ostrich is 35 years old. We have most in their 20s. They have personalities and they're funny and they dance in the sunshine. And not one ostrich on our property right now has been tested for H5N1. We have the FDA and the NIH offering to do those tests and cover the costs. We have RFK offering collaboration with Canada they see that there is opportunity here for humanity on a global scale. And Canadian government is saying that they're protecting the trade. They're protecting our international partners, but we have our largest trading partner saying stop.
Yeah, our largest trading partner is saying stop. Now, I have to tell you, while I was watching this broadcast live yesterday, it crashed for about 15, 25 seconds, maybe longer, until the technicians were able to get it back up. Then it crashed again momentarily, got it back up again. So, I sent a message to Clayton and said, this is really suspicious. Right in the middle of the broadcast, everything collapses. She's just about to answer a very important question. I tell you, every time I do a story on the ostriches, or I interview Katie, or there's in any way a suggestion that we're going to be talking about this issue on the broadcast, that broadcast is suppressed in the largest way possible. Nobody knows it's out. The message announcing that it's on doesn't go. The people don't get it until 10 minutes after the show starts. No, the broadcast is not shared. Nobody knows it's on because there's incredible suppression of this story, because it's more than just ostriches. And this is about private property. This is about your right to a livelihood, your right to work, your right to own livestock, your right to have a farm that the government can't occupy and take over and violate. That's what this story is all about. And this is why there's so many woke leftists out there who don't want you to know about these ostriches. They don't want you to know about this story. And they want you to think that, this is just this this farm that is being selfish because they don't care if their birds are affecting others. This farm has done everything possible. 233 days as of today, these birds have been disease-free and healthy. And they have offered to test the birds for H1N1. They've offered to see if there's any evidence. The government has come back and said, you do that, and you get a $200,000 fine and 6 months in jail for every bird. Now, that is so ridiculous. How about overkill? Can you say stupid? But that's how the government has come back. And if the government is saying that, you can only reach one conclusion. They don't want the farm to prove that the birds are healthy. They want to kill these birds because they don't want to admit they were wrong. And there is a war against farmers in this country. There's a war against agriculture. There's a war against poultry in this country. And these birds are not used for meat. These birds are vital in the study of immunity. But that's not good enough for this government either. 8 million chickens have been slaughtered in British Columbia. Why do you think the price of eggs is going up? Why do you think the price of poultry is going up? Because the health authorities have gone mad. They want another pandemic. They want more lockdowns. They love to be these petty dictators who tell you what to think, where to go, how to walk, where you can shop, where you can't shop. You can't go to the health club. But yes, bars are okay. You can go to bars, not the health club. Oh, yeah, and forget about getting a haircut too. That's off limits. And we decide what's scientific. We make up the science as we go along. That's what the health authorities did during COVID. That's what they want to do with a potential avian flu. And there's no problem here. I tell you, go to Redacted's YouTube site and watch that whole interview. You know, I'm not going to play. I couldn't play the whole thing. I wouldn't want to play the whole thing. It's their interview, but watch it. It's vital you stay informed about this. And before we go, I've got a couple of slides I want to show you here. Let's see this fact checking. Yeah, fact checking the government and CFIA. This is absolutely fascinating. Now, I hope you can see this. Impacts of false positive results. Unnecessary isolation of individuals and quarantining of close contacts with financial and psychological strains. Unnecessary contact tracing and testing. Wasteful consumption of personal protective equipment. Now, why would there be a false positive? Causes of false positive. Contamination during sampling, extraction, PCR amplification, production of lab reagents, contamination of the equipment by high viral titer specimens, cross-reaction with other viruses, sample mix-ups, software problems, data entry or transmission errors, miscommunicating results. So we're not even sure whether the birds that were tested in December, whether or not it was a false reading or not. We just know that whatever it was, the birds had developed an immunity to it. I'm trying to find this here. The fact checking proves the Canadian Food Inspection Agency is on very, very shallow ground. And that's where we are with this story today. And as I say, I will be keeping you informed about what's happening here. Because to me, this is one of the most important stories of the week. Because we cannot allow the government to take our foundational rights to property for granted. We don't have property rights in the Constitution. We've got to entrench them in the Constitution, and Pierre Poilievre should be making that clear. Because right now, we are at the mercy of judges. This is why the Supreme Court in BC overruled property rights in favor of Indigenous entitlement, land claims. Private property has no value when a judge says it has no value, because we cannot go back to a Charter of Rights or a Constitution that says every Canadian enjoys that right. It's not a privilege, it's a right. It's a right to life, liberty, and property. And that should have been clearly articulated and enunciated in our Charter of Rights, in our Constitution, but it was not, because the guy who repatriated that Constitution, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, was not someone who really believed in property rights, just like his son, Justin Trudeau, really didn't believe in them either. So it's been a pleasure being with you today. Please share this broadcast with your friends and family, because I see again the thumb is on this broadcast. People don't want you to see this. People don't want you to know what's really going on in British Columbia right now. I'm going to go out and visit that farm. And I am hoping and praying right now for a happy ending to this story, because God knows they deserve it. Canadians deserve it, because this is not just their story. This is all of our stories. This is about all of our freedoms. And I can't say that often enough or strongly enough. Thank you for watching today. It's been a pleasure. This has been David Krayden broadcasting to you live from Ottawa. I'll be back again tomorrow. And we've got John Carpe of the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms. He'll be joining me at 1:15, 10:15, and we'll be talking about some COVID stories, as well as some other interesting things that have been happening with John lately. And on Saturday, Camille El Sheikh will be on to talk about the 3rd annual million-person march, which I will be intimately involved in. And I want to see all of you out there September 20th, Parliament Hill. And we'll be talking about that on Saturday. Thank you so much for joining me today. God bless you all. Godspeed. God help this poor country, because it is a madhouse. But there's a lot of sane people left. Bye for now.